I don't often say this because I'm ordinarily pretty hard on my own work, but this is probably one of my favorite reviews I've ever done. It's definitely the coolest thing I've ever shot. Part of it is because the source material is so strong. There is basically nothing better than a Reb Brown movie to review, just because the guy will always turn in an instant classic no matter what he's in. The second reason is the participation of Dark Maze Studios and the footage produced by Ed Glazer. This review has actually polarized quite a few people. There's kind of a vocal minority that's... I'd say that the support is very positive, but there's a lot of people who say they just don't get it. They say, like, why do you have this guy making sketches for your reviews? Like, it's so jarring and distracting, and maybe I could have done a better job at framing and introducing the sketches, but I thought it was just better to kind of throw them in there as riffs in their own right. Maybe I could have... I think in one of my initial drafts I had something where, like, this movie's ripping off everything. In fact, it's ripping off the movie that I made called Predaborg, and then I start showing clips from Predaborg. But I actually thought this flowed a lot smoother, just kind of going from the scene into the scene I spoofed. I thought if I really set it up and spend a minute kind of leading into it, it would lose a lot of its impact. I think the rapid pace and the speed of it is part of what makes it really funny. I think if I explain the joke over much, it kind of loses a lot. I really didn't have that much experience with Bruno Mattei. I think probably the most common thing you'd have seen is either Terminator 2, or more likely, I think he did Zombie 3, which I think he directed about half of Zombie 3. And those movies suck too. In fact, Zombie 3 is probably the best thing he ever made, just because it's kind of hard to screw up a zombie movie as long as you've got zombies eating people and the gore is sufficiently cheesy and plentiful. But he's done a lot of these remake-y movies, actually kind of pioneering the genre of remake-exploitation, this is one of them. And I actually didn't get it. I was like, how do you get away with this stuff? Like, you actually are releasing these movies, and they're pretty much exact copies of the source movie. Like, even the font there, I mean, it's basically Predator. What's funny, though, is there are differences. And I said it's basically the same movie, but it's not. I mean, the monster is different. It's not an alien from the future, or it's not an alien from outer space. It's a robot. And it's kind of attached to a secret government agenda. So the conflict there is different. And yet, I've started thinking of why, if they were going to go to such effort to copy the movie, why they didn't just literally take the script and translate it to Italian and shoot that way. And I finally realized it was probably because of budgetary limitations. I just figured, like, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Just remake the whole thing, But it's probably because they couldn't figure out a way to turn the robot invisible. So they just had it kind of jump out of the woods and go greasy, greasy. It's something I should probably look into a little bit more, just the why of how these movies are made. I mean, they wouldn't get made if they didn't make money, or at least one assumes, right? But it's kind of hard to track down the kind of movies that Bruno Mattei did, because he changed his name in so many of those films. And I'm starting to think if he didn't do it either out of shame or maybe to avoid potential litigation, like, Vincent Dawn, who's that? I don't know who that is. Let me see if I can find him. Nope, he's not in the phone book, but... I have no idea. He changes his name in several movies, and Vincent Dawn's the only one I can think of, but he's done a ton of other movies under different names. And in fact, sometimes he's not even credited, like his attachment to, Porno Holocaust, where it actually is a Joe D'Amato film, but he's listed in IMDb as a director who is uncredited but still attached to it. And so it's kind of funny where Mattei kind of floated around working as an editor or kind of an assistant director or even kind of a emergency director to fix certain things, like Zombie 3, where I think he jumped on board about halfway through. Oh, quick note, somebody wrote in on the forum and said that the Turkish title, Robo Savas Balasi, whatever how you pronounce it, translates to Robowar and then Balasi, which is, he says, translates to pain in the ass. So apparently it's Robowar pain in the ass. I would love to get some confirmation on that, but that's kind of weird that you put that on a poster. Anyway, Bruno Mattei, people would correct me saying he's not attached to Porno Holocaust. Honestly, I don't know anymore. It's on IMDb, but they've been wrong before. And what I thought was kind of funny is you're in trouble when Bruno Mattei worked for years working on several films with Jess Franco. And Jess Franco is the guy responsible for probably the worst movie, in my opinion, ever featured on Mystery Science Theater, which was The Castle of Fu Manchu. That one is borderline unwatchable, even with them, with the Mike and or Joel and the bots making fun of it. That movie is unbelievably bad and boring, and so it's kind of bad when you figure that Bruno Mattei learned everything he knew mentored under Jess Franco. It's just so bad. I should probably talk about the movie at some point. I was not exaggerating when it came to this scene. Literally, you're watching these guys kind of scream about their memory circuits being blown and being unable to pull out of whatever tailspin they're in. Like, the guy says they're not going to make it, but the helicopter looks fine. And it has something to do with this robot on the ground, but it's kind of hard to tell, because every time the robot blows up something, it's in that they show credits, like a building explodes and they show credits, and so you can't decide if the explosions are actually taking place or if it's just kind of some Michael Bay-ish melodramatic credit sequence. So I couldn't tell if the robot was doing anything, and it certainly was not doing anything to the helicopter. In fact, the problems they were talking about were totally unrelated to the robot until that point. And then they cut away to this briefing, which I thought was this is probably the funniest scene in the movie to me, just because all of these guys have these ridiculous nicknames, and even the group itself has the name BAM. So I always thought it was funny that these guys have nicknames comparable to a 7-year-old's Xbox Live gamer tag. When it comes to the big-ass motherfuckers, I honestly don't know. You gotta figure that the whole big-ass thing was some kind of bad translation to Italian that kind of went back to English. Because it literally made no... This is one of my favorite things, by the way. My brother laughed his ass off at this point. But you gotta figure that it was some kind of faux pas with the Italian translation. But at the same time, you had a lot of American actors there. You think Reb might have spoken up and been like, yeah, sir, it's probably badass you're probably going for it. But I don't know. It's really weird. This is the first scene produced by Ed Glazer. This is one scene I asked for, where I said, could you get some slides of, the various soldiers in really ridiculous poses with equally stupid nicknames, and so this one really paid off. I love the scene with the guy in the bra and the guy on the toilet, of course. The way this all started was we were doing the epic battle with the Nostalgia Critic and Angry Nerd in Chicago, and we kind of had some downtime. Actually, we didn't really have that much downtime. We were always recording a lot of videos, but late at night when we should have been resting, Ed had brought all of these movies with him because he's big into these kind of Turkish remake and Italian or Indonesian ripoff movies, and so we got together and we watched. What we watched? We watched this Turkish Rambo, of course, Rampage, and we watched Turkish Rocky, which. Shortly after watching Turkish Rocky, we recorded Spooning with Spoony, and at some point in the middle of that, he says, you're the guy who did Your, right? And he's like, that Red Brown guy was in another movie, and he brings out Robowar. And so I watched Robowar. It was the most fucked up thing I'd ever seen, man. And I was like, I can't believe this. Especially since what struck me about this movie is, it kind of seems like, he recalled one really awesome scene, and that scene was the part where Schwarzenegger and the guys are shooting into the jungle. And the reason why you can't call this a direct copy is because he copies that scene, but he copies it like 6 times over the course of this film. Because he's like, that scene was just awesome, and we got to put it in as much as possible. And it really gets repetitive. Like, the scene in Predator had a lot of impact because it was really loud. It was this big, kind of a drum solo in the movie, but you can't have 6 drum solos in a song, much like you can't have this scene 6 times in a movie. Oh, that shirt. Nothing spells big-ass motherfucker like a pastel blue shirt with a sailboat on it, am I right? This reminds me, I cut out several references to certain technical incompetencies, and the first time you see the lumpy guy, you can see reflected in his sunglasses either the cameraman or the director or just one of the crew kind of standing off, and you can tell he's a crew because he's in like a straw hat and he's kind of standing there holding something pointed at the actor. And that happens several times in this movie. You can actually see during the point of view shots of the robot, you can see somebody dressed in white kind of standing off to the side in the trees and things like that. And that's not just once or twice, it's like virtually every time you can see a crew member standing around. The scene that's coming up is the one scene that I wrote. I provided a script for Ed, and I asked them if they could shoot this, and they actually did a fantastic job, especially matching the dark background of the scene in Robowar. And I especially love the touch where Bloodfist is wearing the pastel blue shirt that exposes his midriff. That's awesome. The commander here is played by Peter Davis, who is rapidly becoming one of my favorite actors. I would put this guy in anything. His comic timing is just amazing, and for some reason I just find he has this awesome screen presence. In fact, he kind of reminds me of the kind of, this is going to sound really bad, but he has this authority to him, even when he's saying and doing the most dim-witted things, kind of like Leslie Nielsen, or Peter Graves, you know, when he was in Airplane. He just kind of exudes this middle managerial authority that I find amazing. So I was very happy to hear that Ed could get most of the core cast of Press Start together, and Peter, which blew my mind. In fact, it was really weird watching this scene, because I had never actually been able to get actors together in front of a camera to perform something that I'd written. It's always been just kind of me, or maybe one other person like Linkara, not to minimize Linkara, but just to get to actually have actors together reading my stuff was a really mind-blowing experience for me. It was definitely a first, and so, if nothing else, you know, they had actors, like real actors, performing this stuff on screen, and we got to create something tangible that people could sit around and watch and be entertained by, that wasn't just kind of me sitting in front of a camera and talking at you. It was kind of a movie, and I really liked that feeling. I'd really like to be able to write something and push it through that same kind of process, but actually have something full length. But for the purposes of this review, just seeing that it was possible, and getting these actors who were willing, able, and enthusiastic, I cannot thank them enough. So thank you, everyone at Dark Maze, Ed, Peter, Joshua, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and creating this really, really funny series of sketches for me and to entertain all these people. And so I hope we get to work together again. It was really fun and enlightening for me to be a part of a team like this. I should also give Ed credit for first inspiring the review in the first place, but also for pointing me out to where I could find a copy of the movie poster, and showing me the French movie trailer, which had the really funny, high-pitched robot voice, which I did not touch. That was really the voice of the robot in the trailer. I don't have a French copy of the movie, so I don't know if they committed to that in any French version of the movie, but yeah, that trailer was pretty crazy. What's funny about the music is that it starts off really, really terrible, like the one note repeated over and over again, and it does improve over the course of the film. There's about 3 or 4 walking montages where they're just kind of wandering around, walking kind of prohibitively slowly through the jungle and not doing much, kind of looking tense at things. But it gets better, but the better it gets, the more inappropriate it gets for a scene of people walking through the jungle, like that really heavy guitar anthem that they start playing near. I said it sounds like AC/DC. It actually kind of sounds more like Led Zeppelin in a way. But this scene is this. I left this in purely because you can see my girlfriend's cat Jack Black stick his head around the corner, like, what the fuck are you doing? This review is a little longer than perhaps I would normally do, but I just felt compelled to leave in every one of these scenes where they spray fire into the jungle like crazy, and it was just because it gets repetitive, but there's always one really, really funny part of every scene, and the one here is the guy like screaming like a spaz as he fires into the jungle. He's like, ah! The guy's got such a metal face on when he does it. It's just awesome. I love that part. But that scene is also really funny because up to that point they had not shot at anything yet, and so not only was it like extraordinarily over the top and needlessly brutal, but they had just found like the loudest and most pointless way to give away their position to everything within like 30 miles. But coming up almost immediately after is the second shooting into the jungle sequence, which I set to Three Doors Down Citizen Soldier. I only thought it was fitting that one of the worst movies about soldiers ever made was set to one of the worst songs about soldiers ever made, and that's Counting Toby Keith. But I guess the reason I say that is not only does Citizen Soldier suck, but I had to listen to it so much that I got absolutely sick of it. Over the course of what I do, I tend to go see a lot of different movies in the theater. Especially when I'm making vlogs about it and stuff like that. And at the theater I was at, Oh, this little gesture, I wish I had more of these. There was another scene where he makes another really extravagant gesture that makes no sense, but like everyone seems to know what it means. Anyway, I used to go to the theater a lot, and before every movie, no matter what the time, no matter what the movie, they would show a National Guard trailer that played Citizen Soldier in its entirety. And it was unavoidable because it was always the thing that was right before the coming attractions. So it was totally unavoidable. And it must have played over the span of about 6 months, so I probably heard it about 30, 35 times. And what really was the straw that broke the camel's back was the radio started playing Citizen Soldier, and what was really bad was my brother would get into the car with me, and he's like, I swear to God, I hear Citizen Soldier one more time, I'm going to burn down the fucking theater. And all of a sudden it started playing on the radio, and he almost went through the windshield, like turning into the Hulk, because we listened to it twice that day. Oh yeah. Much like Predator, we see from the robot's point of view that the robot appears to be standing in a tree, and this is never built upon in the movie because the robot seems very content to walk around on the ground. We never see the robot clinging to a tree branch like a monkey. One also wonders why the robot bothers biding its time when, unlike the Predator, it doesn't follow any kind of code of honor or any kind of rules. It's just a robot that wants to kill everybody. So if the robot sees them, why doesn't it just laser them? Because isn't it indestructible and perfect? Like, is it just toying with them? That doesn't sound to me like a very efficient way for a robot to act. This is about as good as time as any for you young whippersnappers who have not seen Predator to go see it. There were so many of these movies that if you watch the Nostalgia Critic and stuff like that nowadays, you probably got this impression that Arnold Schwarzenegger just made really shitty movies, and that was not always the case. Back in the 80s and the early 90s, he was making a ton of classic movies. In fact, that was kind of the golden age of action movies, where movies like Predator, The Running Man, Total Recall, Red Heat, all of these movies were fucking awesome, and like they made those were the classics. You know, they never got any better than that, and Predator stands on its own as one of the all-time classics. Even Predator 2, which was far inferior to the original, was actually pretty good. But that was really heartbreaking when I made this video, I think it was Gamer in 5 Seconds, where I referenced The Running Man, and so many people were like, what movie? What are you talking about? What is this? I was like, dude, it's The Running Man! It's like one of my favorite action movies ever! How can you, like, go see The Running Man right now? Richard Dawson's performance should have won an Academy Award. I swear to God it should have. You wouldn't have thought it, but this game show host turned in one of the best villainous performances of all time. It was awesome. Oh, Commando. That was one of the best movies. It was actually one of the worst, but that was one of those movies at the time where, like I said, it wasn't good, but it was really, really awesome. It was basically just a movie where Arnold would just shoot bitches with rocket launchers, like, for the entire run of that thing. It was just amazing. Like, he basically attacks Colombia. It's Arnold against a major South American republic, and Arnold wins. That so many scenes in that movie were amazing, especially the fight with Bennett, another one of the classic villains of all time, where Bennett wears like yarn mail or whatever, and he's killing people by throwing like circular saw blades at them. He just attacks an army surplus store to load up with more explosives. That movie is fucking brutal, and if you hadn't seen it, just go see it. All of those movies. I actually got this Arnold Schwarzenegger 4-pack DVD, which had basically all those movies on it, and it's like the best purchase I ever made. Because no matter what kind of mood you're in, you can always put one of those movies in as just as background noise, and you can watch it, and it's always good. I'm not even kidding. So much of my fucking life is based around those Schwarzenegger movies. It's like half my vocabulary. It's like, here's Sub-Zero, now Plane Zero, and oh, man, I have such good memories as a child of watching those ultra-violent Schwarzenegger movies. It's crazy. That's why I was so offended by this film. I was like, you fucking ripped off Predator, you bastards! And yes, the perfect killing machine misses the group of slow-moving soldiers by well over 60 yards. Not bad. Right about here when they reach the river, I cut a significant portion of the movie out because it kind of goes nowhere. There's a subplot where they actually cross the river, but it takes like 15 minutes because they all decide to cross it in single file. and so the movie really thinks it kind of holds tension as every individual guy crosses. And of course, it's when the last guy crosses, who's the Papa Doc, who, by the way, his main prop is he has like a smoking pipe, and he always has that kind of clamped in his mouth. I'll get back to that. This is the scene. He does a lot of gesturing here. Ed Glazer basically wrote and directed this whole thing. I had no input on this, but he did an amazing job. I loved it. What strikes me about this is how good it looks. Like I'm shooting on a high-def camera, but even my stuff doesn't look this good. The location that he used was so colorful, and the depth of field he got, like everything is in really sharp focus. This is really good high-def footage. And the fact he was able to even add, like, smoke effects in the background, this is a really beautiful scene, and I was really blown away by that.
You're in my way, sir.
Oh, that is gorgeous right there. Ed, I did not tell Ed to do that. He did that all on his own, and he did that just for me. So that was... Thank you, Mr. Glazer. I remember one guy said... if he ever saw me, he would shout, "You're in my way, sir," at me. I was like, dude, if you did that, I would scissor kick you in the fucking ear. Like, that thing sends me into a rage. Do not shout, "You're in my way, sir." I would kill you. Anyway, going back to the scene where they're trying to cross the river, Papa Doc's the last guy to cross, and the robot pulls him under the water and drags him like 3 miles downstream, and then just for no reason lets him go. I have no idea why or how the robot was underwater this whole time, or why it just let him go when it didn't just kill him. Like, it could have torn his leg off and beat him to death with it, but it just, like, was playing with him.
Don't move.
Inexcusable. I have no idea who was responsible for coming up with a line that lame, but you just think by accident you could come up with something better. Did, like, Bruno just tell him to say don't move, or did he say to Reb... Stick around. Did he say to Reb... come up with something witty, and did Reb come up with that? That just seems like an ad-libbed line, but I would have just stolen the thing from Predator, where he goes, "Stick around." That one was just for me. I tried to include as many of these little scenes that made me laugh out loud as possible. This is one of them.
Shit!
Get out of here! Shit! I love it, just when Reb is screaming at people. It's for some reason I just love that. And there's another scene where the Chuck Norris looking guy runs off, and he's like, "All right, I'll get back here. All right, let's get the crazy little fucker move." That was the most awesome thing. That one was also another one for me.
You don't hide, yet we don't see him.
Kwang's vocabulary kind of fluctuates in the middle of this movie, where he kind of forgets pronouns about halfway through this movie, like he hits his head. I don't know. He's just like, "He no hide, but we no see him. Horses 2-3 days old." It's great how even after we've established that the robot has this massive laser cannon that can blow up entire buildings, they all cluster together as tightly as possible, so when the robot does shoot, they'll all be taken out instantly. This must be what goes on in George Bush's head. Coming up is the scene I had written originally before I even knew Ed Glazer was going to get involved in making his own little clips, and that was I was going to do this thing where I was shooting like a maniac, just like the guys in the movie. And what's funny is I have a green screen that I don't use all that much, but I wanted to get in costume and shoot these, dual AK-47s off screen, but I couldn't do it because I was wearing green camo in front of a green screen, and it's possible to chroma out the exact color you want, but it's not advisable. So I actually had to get a blue screen, which was not that hard, and not even that expensive, but it was kind of silly how I was all dressed in costume, and I walk in there, I was like, "Oh, green screen. Shit." You don't even want to know what the alternative I was thinking of was. I thought I would just kind of run out there in my tighty-whities like Schwarzenegger in Commando, where he kind of beaches the raft in his underwear and he's all nude and stuff like that, and he's shooting the AK-47s. I was like, I think I would lose pretty much all my viewership if I did that. It would be one of the most glorious things ever captured on screen, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think the internet is quite ready for that kind of scene yet. A few people asked what the music was, and this is the assault music on Klendathu from Starship Troopers. I love that music, actually, and by and large, I've kind of softened on my stance on Starship Troopers. I initially really hated it, but I think that was because I didn't initially understand what that film was going for. And Paul Verhoeven actually does a few things very well, and satire is one of them. And in fact, it was probably such a good satire that it went over my head, which I'm actually a little ashamed about, that I didn't see that in the first place.
He's out of range, too far away. Besides,
This is probably the most infuriating aspect of this screenplay that probably should have been rewritten entirely, because it just makes no sense. The fact that this remote has literally, I'm not even kidding, like a range of 4 inches. They have to stick it right in his face, which again begs the question, why have a remote in the first place if it's that useless? Yeah, that one was for me too. I wanted to do a few more callbacks because I actually wanted to work in the ooh nasty thing more often, but I've had very little excuse to, and the few times that I have had a reason to, I've just forgotten to do it. I love Nightmare, and I wish that show was still on. And so the ooh nasty thing, it was always like the highlight of my day if I ever saw an episode of Nightmare that was like, ooh nasty. Coming up is something I've never seen in a movie before, so if nothing else, Robowar can say this. I have never seen a scene where a guy spews gore into the camera lens. And that counts Quarantine, where a guy is beaten to death with the camera. I've never seen somebody like regurgitate blood into the actual face of the audience, into the fourth wall. In case you're wondering, though, this is not the only Reb Brown-Bruno Mattei collaboration. There's at least one more that I'm aware of, and that's a movie called Strike Commando, which I have not seen yet, but the cover to that tape is hilarious. Reb is actually carrying what looks like an M1 carbine, but it actually has, like, the barrel of it is not a normal barrel. It's like a minigun barrel, and all of the barrels on this gun are firing at once, which is impossible. So this movie just kind of demands to be watched. There's a few other Reb Brown movies that let me see what I have. There's Street Hunter, White Ghost. I haven't seen either of those, and I'm actually working on getting the Captain America movies, which are not the same Captain America film that Nostalgia Critic did. That one does not have Reb Brown in it. I don't know much more about that yet. I'm still working on researching that stuff. Oh, there's your classic Reb Brown, like, death scream. The Nameless Blonde Woman is pretty much named the Nameless Blonde Woman, and apparently from my talks with Ed, she's kind of a staple character in a lot of these Italian/Turkish remake-exploitation kind of films. For some reason, there's always a sleepy-eyed blonde woman who doesn't say much in these movies, who just kind of serves as someone for the hero to rescue, but doesn't really get involved all that much except to kind of scream in terror. Which I thought was kind of funny how it's kind of an archetype in these films. And if you don't believe me, I think you can see the same type of character in Turkish Rambo and Turkish Star Wars. I know for sure there's one in Turkish Star Wars. Just look for the training montage in that. There's a sleepy-eyed blonde woman in that movie. It's amazing. Somebody wrote in saying that this scene where Reb's old friend gets reanimated as the robot is a ripoff of Universal Soldier, which is actually pretty good. I would bet you dollars to donuts there is an Italian remake-exploitation film based on Universal Soldier. I just don't know what it is yet. There's a few other really famous films that are kind of iconic of the remake-exploitation. Terminator 2 being one of them, which is a ripoff of Aliens. It is not at all a ripoff of Terminator, but it is a carbon copy of Aliens. And then there's Lady Terminator, which I believe its original title is It's Nasty Something, like Nasty Terror or Nasty Killer, but it's more commonly known as Lady Terminator, which is, it's basically like shot-for-shot Terminator, but with a foxy woman in it. Very strange film. But when it comes to most of these movies, I would like to throw a shout-out to my pal, Brad Jones, also known as the Cinema Snob, who has reviewed several of the movies that I've mentioned. He's done Jaws 5 Cruel Jaws, he's done Porno Holocaust, he's done Terminator 2, at least. He's done a ton of Bruno Mattei movies. So just look for the Cinema Snob, and you can actually see some of his reviews on the same director. Definitely check it out. I don't have that much more to say. If I was going to change one thing, I actually probably would change Burton's kind of robot vision to something that's blue instead of red. I thought I think I kind of debated it mentally in my head for about 5 seconds. I was like, it should be true to the movie so it doesn't confuse people. But I always thought Burton would see things in blue instead of red. I don't know. It was pretty funny and actually kind of sweet how many people wrote in after the Clones of Bruce Lee thing asking, like, where's Burton? Where is he? Like, he's our favorite. And I was like, well, my room's not ready, and he can't be in every review. And they're like, well, we love the guy, and he's always sitting back there and looking cute. And I was like, oh, well, I'll get Burton in as soon as possible. So I wanted to kind of reintroduce him and kind of throw him back in there. So he will be there from now on, don't worry. I think I actually had a sketch written where I was repairing him, but I thought it better he would just kind of get up and be angry. But, you know, we're not dead. We're going to be sitting around. We're fine. We just had a bit of a tiff. Special thanks once again to everyone at Dark Maze Studios. If you haven't checked the website out, he produces the movie Press Start, and he's also re-released Turkish Rambo, also known as Rampage, which I would also check out if you're a fan of that kind of B-grade movie, which it's really fun. And I know it seems like I'm shilling for the guy a lot, but he's been nothing but good to me, and he actually does produce very quality products, so I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I would definitely check him out. Also, if you haven't had the chance yet, you'll probably notice that there's a lot of different things on the website, a lot of different ads, and ads on the video as well. So I would encourage you to, if you'd like to see a different movie again, watch it over again, because I actually do get a lot more significant ad revenues nowadays. So yeah, check out the ads, check out the different videos, and watch Phantasmagoria again. I don't know, just can't go wrong watching more of my videos. So thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy Robowar, and I hope you enjoy the Reb Brown features to come. So don't move.